And welcome back to Friday Briefing, seated with Peter Greste. And see all your responses, your feedback. Very many people welcome you back.
Thank you. It's fantastic to be here.
It's fantastic. I can imagine. And I think I want to start from the good part of you going home. I've seen so many pictures of your mom, Lois, and your dad, Juris. Is that right? And you know, they were so excited to see you. How did you feel seeing them after 400 days?
Well, that was an extraordinary moment. Well, my parents came through to Cairo, and they were able to visit me quite a few times in prison. So it wasn't 400 days since I'd seen them. But that was the moment, really, when I felt free. I was released a couple of days earlier, and I went to Cyprus just to decompress and to gather my thoughts and prepare for the trip back to Australia. But the whole release was such a weird moment. I only found out about it literally half an hour before I walked out of the prison gates.
Half an hour?
Yeah, only half an hour. In fact, that day the day that I was released, I was expecting a visit from my brother, and I thought that I was planning to tell him that we need to step up the campaign because for all sorts of reasons it felt to me as though the Egyptian authorities nothing was happening, and so I was completely unprepared. And it's a bit like Christmas, you know, if you sort of half the joy of Christmas is the build-up to it, is the preparation to it, the anticipation. If you simply wake up one morning and find a bunch of presents there, it's kind of like, well, what's going on here? And so I had a few days to prepare for that return back to Australia. And so the reunion, not just with my parents, but with my family, with my brothers, my nephews, my sisters-in-law, and so on, was absolutely extraordinary. And that was the moment when I really felt, okay, I'm really free. This whole thing is over. Yeah.
And during the 400 days, did you think about that moment? Was it possible to even imagine that moment would ever happen?
I thought about it, of course I thought about it, but I never really imagined quite what it would ultimately be like. It was a truly magical moment, not just to see my family, but immediately after, because I had the chance to go and meet my family in a room at the airport before I actually passed through the entrance area.
When now everyone was waiting for you.
And it was just phenomenal. It was unbelievable. There were hundreds of people. I thought maybe a dozen or so people would show up, but it was about 1:30 in the morning, in the middle of the week. I think it was on a Wednesday morning. And you know, I thought nobody's going to be bothered coming up to see them at that time of the day. You know, it's a school day, so they've got kids to worry about, they've got jobs to go to. They're not going to want to give up their night. There were, I don't know, there were hundreds of people there, journalists and well-wishers and friends and family and so on. It was really overwhelming.
Wow. Take me back to that day. You say that you only had like half an hour and you're out. What was it like being told, you know what, you can go home?
Well, as I said, it was completely surreal because I just wasn't expecting it. I was out running. We had a corridor outside the prison cell where I would run, maybe about 25-30 meters, and I just
run like a workout.
I'm working out. You had to run to keep fit. You need to be physically fit to get through something like that.
Okay.
And so I was going through one of my daily runs. Normally ran about 40-45 minutes to an hour every day. And so I was jogging up and down that when one of the guards called me over and said, look, the boss needs to speak to you. It was a bit odd. They don't normally speak to us under those circumstances. So I went over to him and he said, look, I've got some news. I said, you're going, pack your stuff. And
just like that?
I said, well, what do you mean I'm going? So, I was really confused. I said, are you moving prisons or something? He said, no, the embassy officials, they're here in half an hour. Yella, get moving.
What?
And I was like, what? He said, yeah, you're going home. I thought, it was completely surreal.
Yes.
And so I got my stuff together and saw the embassy officials who were there to meet me. I signed a few papers, and then they put me in a prison van and drove me to the airport and got me out at the airport and said, you know,
that's it.
You're on your way home. Thanks. It's nice to see you.
Yes. It's sort of like you were. It's sort of like you're expecting like there would be drums roll and this massive goodbye.
There was no ceremony, no moment. I had just a few minutes just to say goodbye to my colleagues who were in prison, my cellmates, to say, listen, I'm on my way out. And there was no ceremony at the airport. There was just my brother was there. He was in Cairo at the time. And the ambassador, the Australian ambassador, and they saw me off. I got on the plane with my brother Mike, and then we flew to Cyprus, and we got off at the plane at the other
Wow.
end, and again there was no big fanfare, no welcoming committee, nothing. And it was the
Nothing.
strangest thing. It was
Yes.
the most surreal thing, because you expected after 400 days there to be a big drum roll,
Yes,
a big
exactly.
sort of moment.
Parties, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
it didn't happen.
Okay.
And that's why I think also the arrival back in Australia, when I finally got that moment where I felt that this was
This is
the
it.
moment of celebration, the moment of joy, when it was really felt like it was
Wow.
over.
I want to go back and, you know, rewind to the day that you were actually arrested. What did you think of? Did you think, okay, this is a small problem, it's going to go away in a few days or a few hours?
Well, on the day that we were arrested, we hadn't done anything wrong. You know, I've pushed the boundaries
Yes.
with my journalism in plenty of places. I know we've upset governments around the place. I mean, as journalists, that's really what we do. We're not supposed to be friends. We're supposed to really challenge the authorities. And in Egypt, though, we hadn't really done that. I kept a very neutral line, because I was only in Egypt just for a couple of weeks before I was arrested. I was only treading water over the Christmas New Year period.
Yes.
And so, because I didn't know Egypt that well, I wasn't really trying to do anything that was particularly groundbreaking. I was simply trying to tread water. And so, when we got the knock on the door and the officers came in, I thought, well, this is just a mistake. I mean, it was completely unexpected. I hadn't anticipated any problems. And I thought that we'd make a few phone calls, we'd be questioned for an hour or two, we might have to spend a night or so in the cells, but I thought at the very most, we'd be kicked out of the country, and that would be it. We never anticipated
Wow.
what ultimately happened.
And nothing like that.
We never thought it would go to trial. When it went to trial, we never thought that it would be convicted, because there was no evidence. And I think everyone who monitored the trial recognized that there was no evidence.
Yes, yes. And talking about the evidence, you know, as I was, you know, reading, and, you know, the prosecution, there's a time that you even said that you're angry at the, you know, the kind of evidence that was there, because, you know, they got, you know, a song by the musician Gotti, and a program about sheep farming. And that's the evidence they actually used against you?
Yeah, it was very strange. What happened was they were actually going through our computers
Yes.
while we were in court. I don't think that they actually the investigators opened the computers to check what was in there.
Okay.
And it seemed to me that as though the prosecution was so convinced that we had been involved in some kind of nefarious activities that all they would have to do was simply present what was on our computers, and the evidence would be there.
Yes.
And so when they finally went through it and started showing the court what was in there, there was nothing.
There was really
Absolutely
nothing.
nothing. Because we hadn't, as I said, we hadn't had any inappropriate relationships, any inappropriate contact with anybody. We were accused of supporting the Muslim Brotherhood, but beyond normal journalism, we hadn't done anything that was wrong.
All right. Let's talk about prison life. That's what even the tweets that I'm getting, very many people are wondering, how did you adapt to it? The first few days, how was it like?
Well, one of the problems with prison is that you learn very quickly that the whole point of prison is to mess with your head. It's to put pressure, psychological pressure on you. Even things like physical abuse, like torture, is intended to ultimately affect you psychologically. And so you realize that the most important thing is to keep your mind stable and strong. And so I spent a lot of time, well, in prison you've got this huge formless blob of time, which if you're not really careful, your mind can start to eat itself up. And so we knew that we had to be very disciplined about things like exercise. We were very careful to make sure, as I mentioned earlier, the running that we did. We also tried to set aside some time every day to do some form of exercise to keep physically fit. There was also a lot of, you need to keep mentally fit as well. So we organised activities, mental games. We would challenge each other. We'd organise discussions and debates. We tried to do creative things. So we were mentally constantly active. But I also found that meditation was a really important part of it for me, a part of trying to keep mental stability, to try and see things in perspective, and that was also a very important part. So sort of mind, body and spirit, all really key things.
Maybe finally, we'll continue the conversation shortly, but before we go to the break, did you ever know that, you know, outside the prison walls there was so much support from, you know, journalists across the world who are coming out and supporting the movement?
Look, we knew that things were happening, but we never really understood the extent of it. But the amazing thing to me was that it started here in Nairobi,
Exactly, yes.
with my colleagues, with
Yes.
not just the Foreign Press Corps, but
Yes.
also the local Kenyan journalists who, I think, recognised. I'd like to think because people knew me. They knew the work that I'd been doing over the years. We'd seen each other on the road. We knew and trusted and liked each other. And I think they recognised that the allegations from the Peter Greste that they knew, it was impossible that those allegations could be substantiated.
real.
So the campaign really began here. It's what the Free AJ Staff hashtag,
Yes.
which was launched launched here by my colleagues, the Zip the Lips campaign,
Yes.
where they took selfies
Yes.
with their mouths taped shut. That was the moment, that was the action that really got the ball moving. This was the thing that got the momentum going.
Right.
So my colleagues in Australia started to see what was happening here and responded. In the UK they did the same, all over the world.
Okay.
And it was absolutely extraordinary.
All right.
And it was a thing that really kept us going through the
Wow, brilliant, brilliant. We have so many questions. We want to just take a short commercial break, but we will be back with Al Jazeera correspondent Peter Greste, and of course I'm going to be sampling also some of the questions that you're putting out to him shortly. Stay with KTN Friday Briefing.